And welcome to Out of Home Day Part 3, the last in our installments of Out of Home Day for 2020. Just a couple of housekeeping notes, but first I'm going to introduce the all-important Daniel Mack.
Thanks, Lee. I thought you forgot about me for a second there.
Possibly happened.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
So about those housekeeping notes, unfortunately, Nicole Brown is unable to join us today. We are hopeful that Amplifi Dentsu will be joining us for our 2021 series. And finally, this is an Ad Club event, which you know we contribute towards NABS. If any of you are interested in participating in Ad Club events for 2021, please do not hesitate to reach out to either Dan or me. Dan?
Thanks, Leith. We have an action-packed event today, so I'm not going to drag this out too long. We just want to quickly say thank you to our sponsors, MIQ, Vistar, Kinetic, HiveStack, Clue, Adapt, Movia, and Vendo out of home. We have a lot of support. Thank you everyone who has joined in on previous sessions. This is session number 3. Let's get right to it. Bill, over to you.
Thanks, Leith. Thanks, Daniel. How's everybody doing today? All right. Well, the theme for today's discussion is navigating an advertising world so changed by COVID-19, the ultimate disruptor. Now, disruption. I think we've all kind of experienced a certain level of disruption in our lives and our business lives over the last few years. Think about all the crazy things that have happened. The media landscape has changed dramatically. You know, the employment and competitive landscape has changed, and even some of the landscapes on our personal front. But in the last 8 months, we've been dealing with the ultimate disruptor, COVID. And I'm sure everyone is feeling it either or personal lives, business lives, and obviously health stuff. But I think I speak for a lot of people when I say, frankly, I'm ready to look forward and move beyond this and do some great things for my company and also for the industry. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. We're really going to focus more on the future, on where we see out of home going as a group in answer to a bunch of questions that have already been presented. We've got a great panel today, and I'm really excited to have the 4 people join me on this panel. With us is Amanda Newell, who's VP of Sales for Vendo Media. Apologies.
Thank you.
And Scott Mitchell, Managing Director Canada for Vistar. Hey, Scott. We have Debbie Drutz, who's President of Novus Canada. And finally, we have Fab Stanghieri, who is the EVP and Managing Director for Cineplex Media. Welcome, guys. Glad that you're with us. One other housekeeping note for me, and that is that we have a lot of questions already, but if you do have any questions, you can go to the Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen, type in a question, and we'll try and sneak it in a little later if we can. So why don't we start it by asking the first question. Other than the obvious reduction in spend levels, what has been the single biggest effect of COVID on the out-of-home industry? And I thought I'd turn to Scott first to answer that. Scott, over to you.
Thanks, Bill, and hi, everyone. I think one of the biggest, effects that we've seen from COVID kind of really lies in audiences and where people are actually kind of moving about in the real world. People's habits have changed. The normal of how we think of reaching audiences from a normal perspective during an 8-hour day has really shifted to almost this kind of 4-hour day. And so I think one of the biggest contributing factors is trying to be able to reach those audiences at that right time in the right place. And one of the things that could really benefit in terms of making these strategies is looking at the use of data. How can we better implement data to reach audiences where they're the most or the highest propensity to reach them at the right times? And I think that's been a challenge that marketers are starting to think about in agencies in terms of how they're continuing to bring back out of home as part of their plans, and really trying to kind of find out how best to reach them with this new normal that we're living through.
That's great, Scott. Really good point on data. And maybe, Amanda, you could build on that a bit. Also, any thoughts you have, additional thoughts you might have on the effect of COVID on the out-of-home industry?
I'm glad to, Bill. And I think my comments are certainly more towards the personal. I'm going to borrow an analogy that a wonderful friend of mine named Leith Mason used in a sales meeting actually a couple of days ago. COVID has been rather like a chocolate-covered almond, if you can imagine that. So if you look at the pandemic itself, you could see the doom and gloom of it. You can see the external, which would be almost like the chocolate shell. You could look at it as an economic shutdown. You could do that. But as a sales organization, we're having more personal conversations with our clients than ever before. They're more profound. You're not having small talk over boardroom tables anymore. You're being invited into people's living rooms and bedrooms, and you're meeting their children. And in some cases, like Debbie, you're meeting their adorable dogs. So it's a different world. And I think the relationships that we're building are based on a very common experience, which is rare. And these relationships, I think, will last forever. So as a sales organization, we're certainly not taking that intimacy lightly. Again, it's an unintended consequence of the pandemic, but it's something that we have really appreciated. Thank you.
That's an interesting juxtaposition. We have data, and then we've got that really personal, more personal conversation touch, which is kind of in one hand, seems like a bit of a dichotomy, but on the other hand, it's actually two sides of a whole. It's great thought. Any additional thoughts on this, Debbie, from your front? I don't mean to put you on this. I'm happy to throw another question.
No, I mean, you know, there's so many things that have been going on in the past 8 months. I think the biggest battle on the buy side for us is going to, you know, we got to talk to our marketers again, and we got to bring them back into the space. I think, you know, habits form within 60 days as we know it. I know my habits have certainly changed, you know, since Q1. And so if I think about what marketers are thinking, if things are working for them today and things are working and over the top or streaming or digital, then it's quite easy for buyers and planners to say, well, it worked, you know, in the back half of this year. So it's going to be working, you know, it'll be working fine next year. And so I think we have a lot of work to do in just going back to basics and you know, just explaining why out of home is the place to be, the benefits of out of home, and why they need to come back to the channel.
You know, I think that's a great point. I mean, I'm later to the out-of-home game, and so there's all these assumptions people have about the power of out-of-home and what it does. But I think you're right. I think a lot of people maybe don't know that, and we have to go back to those basics. So I totally agree. Just thinking about some of those other lessons we've learned. You know, we've learned to reconnect with people. We're learning lessons about data, but just think about other important lessons we've learned as an industry from COVID. That will allow us to move forward in a different, more positive direction. Fab, I'd love to get some of the thoughts you might have on that question.
Thanks, Bill, and thanks for the opportunity to speak among such an awesome panel. Being new to the industry, taking over at Cineplex Media in July, I came right smack in the middle of COVID. Lots of lessons that we will all take away, but I think first and foremost for me, it was the need for us to be agile and quick. We have to be quick to adapt. During our downtime, we've reflected on how we can better serve our clients, how we can better serve the groups that we work with, our partners. And it gave us really an opportunity to reflect and how we can automate certain parts of what we do to make it faster, better, and more efficient as we came out. We took the time to reflect and plan for the effective use of data. And Scott, that was music to my ears. That's a word that is overused with us, but we do think it is, you know, the power that it gives us to understand where our audiences are, and being able to connect with them is critical. But once again, you know, this downtime also allowed us to take a lot of lessons in the investments we need to make in our people and our technology that can allow us to come out of this faster and stronger. But more importantly, as a company and as an industry, the time to look in the mirror and better understand what we need from each other and how we can add more value to gain spend in our out-of-home spaces. So once again, it's about people, focusing on our clients, focusing on the technology and the data, so that when we do come out of this, we can definitely be in a much better position.
I think it's really important, that idea of agile and quick. I mean, you know, as an industry, we're still one of the smallest mediums in advertising today. So we have lots of room for growth, but the smallness allows us to be nimble and quick. So I think it's a great point. Any other thoughts on this question before we move to the next?
I have a thought.
Amanda, over to you.
Absolutely. So one of my favorite parts about some of the positive effects of the pandemic has been the idea of collaboration. And it came from actually one of the largest vendors in the entire industry, which is actually the largest, but Pattison, in order to correct a misconception that out-of-home traffic numbers had plummeted and continued to plummet. Pattison made their research available to everyone on LinkedIn. So they were really publicizing the medium. They could have kept those resources to themselves. They could have just, given that particular snippet to their clients alone. But they wanted to make sure that out-of-home shouted from the rooftops as to the fact that the traffic was still there. And I appreciated that. I think there's a lot to be said for being stronger together. There's been a lot said about we're in this together. And I think that Pattison really helped to prove that adage when they brought that research to all of us. And that's greatly appreciated.
Well, that's an interesting constant collaboration. Most industries, at least in media, different platforms struggle with that. The world I came from before was like that, a big struggle, huge battles all the time amongst each other, and really just hurting the industry itself. So it's good to hear that. Any other thoughts on that approach of collaboration?
Yeah, I think that collaboration is key. And, we all working out of home, we're all kind of in this net new world together. And I think the more that we can connect across our different companies and help talk about investment in out of home, we'll continue to understand what 2021 looks like and how do we help educate advertisers that out of home is the channel that they still remembered, but we're helping make it better, or we're adjusting to this net new. So I definitely love that collaboration point and think that there's definitely things we can continue to build on across the board for sure.
Well, and I guess fundamentally, Vistar is a collaborator. It facilitates collaboration. That's what it does. I mean, you have almost everybody, all out-of-home vendors on your platform today. So,
absolutely, yeah. And I think the conversations that we're having with all of our partners are all going in the right direction. We want to try and bring spend back into the place. We want to support the efforts to show why out-of-home is continually still reaching their audiences. And yeah. I think that's a great point, Bo.
That's great. Now, just maybe go on to another question. In many markets, outdoor traffic has returned to or gotten close to expected year-over-year averages. We haven't seen investments return to the same degree, and love to know what needs to be done to rebuild that confidence in the medium. And maybe go back to you, Debbie, on this, because you kind of touched on it a minute ago. But that's one of the big questions I think people in our industry are asking is, wow, traffic, especially roadside traffic, is back to normal. Other assets are doing better, you think, things like malls and so on. So what are we doing or how can we rebuild that confidence?
Yeah, so I would argue that not every venue type is back. And I think that's what, marketers first and foremost are thinking about, and I think the biggest challenge right now is that as our government is messaging key things to us as consumers, as people in the marketplace, keep social distancing, stay home, try not to be with more than 10 people, and then we've got these 28 lockdowns, appearing in each of these markets. And then we've got, new rules like coming up next weekend around, okay, bars will be open, but, cut off at a certain time, or gyms are going, they're back open. Our marketers and our clients out there are consumers. And so I think they're torn with that feeling of they're listening to what the government is saying, they're listening to the marketplace and thinking about, do I want to be in that space? Do I want to be in that venue? Because the message really is about kind of staying home and hunkering down and keeping your distance. So I think, again, like I said before, I think we're going to have not an uphill battle, but I think we as an industry, and we do collaborate a lot. That's what I love about this particular industry. We have to help each other, and we have to help our advertisers see why out of home is back. To talk to your point, Scott, about, key times that people are surgically going outside now to do their, essential pickups. And we have to prove that, audiences are out and about, and they are on, the highways, and they are in particular local neighborhoods, and they have to connect with them in those ways. And I think that that's going to be the key, is really about education. Like, we got to get back in, especially now we're heading into the holidays. It's to talk about why the medium was so strong in Q1. All of us, we talked about how great Q1 was. We were all seeing, year-over-year growth versus prior year. And I think we have to continue that conversation with marketers.
It's funny because I was coming home last week, and it took me 50 minutes to get to Etobicoke along the Gardiner, just like winter in past years. So, when I see that, To me, it seems pretty obvious that it's really back and strong. Maybe proving other areas was more difficult. Fab, maybe you can touch on that. I know that, like Branded Cities, you at Cineplex are dealing with a lot of interior spaces. So what are your thoughts on this?
We do. From our cinema business, which everyone is aware of, it's been open, closed, and in the mall business, the biggest thing is transparently sharing the data that we have access to. In terms of when we're open, the visitation rates, there's misunderstandings about malls. Like some of the malls here in Ontario are back at 65%, Quebec 75% plus. BC's done very well. We're using technology in those malls to understand and share with our partners that the consumer behavior's changed. There's more mission-based shopping today. People go out with a plan. I need to buy shoes and I'm going to go into this store. I may need to line up. I may not do the window shopping, but the traffic is coming back. I feel that working with our partners to understand the data they require to better facilitate those transactions, make good informed decisions. I mean, the big thing when I joined the media side was data. We need to measure and we need to be able to measure attribution. We need to be able to go all in terms of what do you need in terms of first, second, and third party data so that we can understand what's happening, especially in light of this. This is a once in a generational event. Everyone is looking for an answer. We may not have all the answers, but if I can get you that much closer to understanding what is happening and that you're making a good informed buy, then I've done my job. And we keep reinforcing that with our sales teams. And during the sales meetings, it's what do you need? How can we help you? What could we give your partners to give them comfort that this is a smart move? So it's a constant hand-to-hand battle, combat to ensure that we can get the right information out as we're rebuilding those attendance levels in malls and in movie theaters.
Great insights from those two categories, and the numbers you quoted are very similar to what we see at Branded Cities as well. So I think there's a lot of consistency in those mall numbers between our two companies. So it's good to hear that consistency exists. Amanda, maybe you have a couple of thoughts on this as well. I know that you're out there fighting the fight. What are your thoughts on this issue?
I think in fighting that fight, I think one of the most important keys to the fight will be comb. And I know that we have a special guest star that might speak to that a little more, but I think it's incumbent on them to be the speaker for our industry, to advocate for all of us. I certainly have seen, just from a personal sort of Vendo standpoint, our indoor spaces have not returned, where it's an office network. So to Debbie's point, unfortunately, people are not returning to offices. But to Fab's point, we have spaces in shopping centers that are returning. We have digital out of home. Luckily, as you said, Bill, you're still fighting that traffic on the Gardner getting home. So we're finding it's returning. It's important and incumbent on all of us to communicate that, certainly to Debbie's earlier point, to Fab's point, to Bill's point, to Scott's point, to make sure that we're standing up for this industry and standing up for out of home as a medium. So I'm basically echoing everything everyone else has already said.
And that's great. Thanks, Amanda. And Scott, I'm just thinking from your perspective, obviously, I think a lot of people have seen an increase in programmatic spend. And I know we touched on programmatic last month in the event, but maybe just in the context of what we can do and what you're seeing on your side of things, what more can we do to convince clients to get in, especially on the programmatic front?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is continual education and talking about the flexibility of what programmatic platforms offer. The ability to change creative, the ability to change data strategies, really kind of aligning to what the market calls for. Obviously, no one was expecting a pandemic. No one was thinking that audience patterns were going to change as drastically as they were. But with the ability to use software and technology, I think that's a big educational point that continue to help talk about some of the benefits that technology has brought to the out-of-home space, as well as help it align with a lot of the marketing strategies as they start thinking about Q4, as they're starting to think even about 2021. There's still a lot of unknowns. So I think it's keeping that open door to being flexible and having some insight that they can actually play upon.
And just going through some of the questions here, I think there might be a little bit of doubling up, but I think we can get some additional thoughts on these. So I'm going to go to the next, which is many vendors and agencies have pivoted to adopt new strategies, processes, and offerings during or coming out of COVID. So what's your company done to evolve since the lockdown? And Amanda, maybe you can jump in first on this one.
Absolutely. Well, our news is big. We actually got married, as it were. Media City, which is an Eastern digital out-of-home provider, married Simpatico, a Western digital out-of-home blockbuster, to become Vendo Media. What we're now offering our clients is national scale. We're also ensuring that even though we're a large company now, we're keeping the nimbleness, to Fab's earlier point, alive. We're doing things like increasing our flexibility by having a 14-day cancellation period, which is pretty much unknown in our industry, because we understand, to I think Debbie's point, that clients are unsure about this medium. They need that flexibility. They need us to pivot. They need us to be more nimble. Now, what you're looking at now actually is a slide that comes from the delightful Mr. Scott Mitchell from Vistar. But what Vendo is offering to the market is actually a perfect response to today's world. The slide on your left is the before slide. It shows a heat map of Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal. It shows how we used to travel in a day. We traveled to work in the city, we commuted home. Quite frankly, there was not a lot of travel beyond that. That was how our day looked. But now, in the midst of pandemic, we're working from home. We're in our bedroom communities. We're in those smaller communities. The traffic counts haven't necessarily changed, but our traffic patterns have. We're staying close to home. We're making smaller trips to grocery stores, or liquor stores quite often in a day. That might be a problem, but anyway, it's just the idea that the traffic patterns have definitely changed, and what Vendo is now offering is actually perfect. That I know that Debbie has often advocated for a more localized out-of-home a localized out-of-home campaign, and certainly with Vendo offering that idea, it's certainly speaking to something that our advertisers might need to reflect these changing traffic patterns. So. By happy accident, or more likely diabolical design, Vendo meets that need, and that's how we pivoted.
Amanda, I never asked you guys when you pitched this to us, where the name Vendo, where did it come from? Well,
as a matter of fact, it is nothing to do, even though Vendo in Italian means selling.
Selling, okay, that's what I thought.
But yes, but in Latin, Vendo means advertising. So that is why. So yes, it's not, we're actually hitting from both sides on that one. I love the Latin aspect of it.
Okay, I thought that's what it was.
Yes, it gives us that gravitas. Yes.
That's cool. I like it. That's cool, Amanda. And it's funny, I also found it interesting that you found a way to slip in alcohol there. I don't know how you did it, but
right.
We're
going to slip that in throughout the day.
I think so. I think Debbie has an invitation at the end, which is kind of fun.
Actually, I was wondering what Debbie's drinking to that straw right now. Actually,
no, I was doing all vodka
in front of my liquor cabinet, and someone suggested I should do that today, but I didn't think it was a good idea. Anyways, Debbie, over to you. What's Novus doing?
So my slide is up. So we did two key things, which I'm really excited about to talk about this one. We created Action for Equity Collective. And this is a group of dedicated folks really listening and making meaningful change around diversity and inclusion in our organization. Novus at the time was about 73% female, but we had so much more to do in terms of, changing things internally, thinking about policies and how we, go to market with hiring. And, to date, we've launched monthly newsletters, we've curated education and engaging material. We already have all of these policy changes that are in place to observe very specific days. We've even changed names of certain holidays, and we've developed required courses for employees to take in just to create an environment of diversity and inclusivity. So we're really excited about AEC. And on the right side, Novus Extra, which I did launch in July at the DPAA Canada Summit. And this is just an exciting new brand extension through Novus, where we're able to offer new and unique opportunities, amplify out of home, and it's really all anchored in out of home and extra things that happen within the out of home space. But we launched our first partnership in October with Octopus, our video rideshare premium platform. And it's been going well. We've got screens out on the road and really excited about these two projects that we kicked off this year.
Sounds like some great things happening at Novus. Thanks for the update, both Debbie and Amanda. Actually, Fab, I don't know if you've kind of touched on some of the stuff at Cineplex already, but given the fact that you are new in the role, is there anything else you want to add to this question about, what have you been adopting in terms of new strategies and processes? And I'm interested as a competitor because then I'll know.
There are no secrets in this business, right?
But it's true. There aren't. So go ahead.
We've done quite a bit to evolve during the lockdown. It started before me. It started kind of part of the whole Cineplex ecosystem. We've had an innovative approach to running our business. As you imagine the cinema business, it's been written off. I've been there for 25 years. If I had $1 for every time they told us that we were dead, I'd be a very rich person. But for the last 105 years, we've been putting images on screens and written off by the VCR, the color TV, Netflix. We always bounce back because we innovate. We innovate by understanding the consumer and what they're looking for, talking to the consumer, assessing market shifts, and being able to find ways for us to add value. When we saw COVID coming in, we thought we had to pivot. What we focused on was, look, we've had a background in data for a long time. We know that by optimizing content, measuring attribution, you can use different technologies and teams that we now had access to make our customers' campaigns reach the right audiences at the right time. So that kind of became our North Star. And that's how we talked about getting through this. At the time, we weren't in programmatic prior to COVID. We'd started to dabble, but we went all in. We now are locked in with Vistar, Hivestack, and Broadsign. And the feedback is great, and the dollars are rolling in. And we also launched Smart Engine, which is our AI tool that is a true game changer for all of our other businesses, and that will make their way into what we're doing here. So I've always looked at adversity as an opportunity. And this is crap, man. What's going on is really crap. But some of us, actually, lots of us, will make it through this better off. And I think the work we've done and the work we've done with our partners to understand where their pain points are and to kind of better understand what they need from us will make us better and make the pivot easier and get everyone to buy in as an organization.
Thanks for the feedback and thoughts, Fab. I've already recorded all of them, and we will take full advantage. I'm actually going to come back to you, Debbie. There's been fewer campaigns in the last few months running, and that was obviously had an effect on how we wanted to proceed, or they actually wanted to proceed with out-of-home day this year, because historically we've done these great programs around creative success stories. However, there have been some great success stories, and I think, Debbie, you were maybe going to touch on a couple of those with us.
Yeah, when we kicked off COVID, I think it was from the US, I'm sorry, but Burger King was brilliant. They launched like early on, I'm not sure if anyone caught it, a Zoom background with all of their great out-of-home creative. Completely used it as a utility. You were able to, use their Burger King background as your Zoom background, and it featured everything that was in market at the time because, nobody was outside. I'll shout out to my friends, Tim Hughes at Karen's O'Neill for the Womanizer. I mean, I know it was pressed in MIC. It was brilliant. Canadian made sex toy brand, like how smart to have launched during COVID. What a great message. If you haven't seen it, go Google it because it's beyond hilarious. And one of my favorites actually that's just made me laugh, and I've been driving everywhere lately. Who has seen the Pringles campaign? It is so simple, so smart. It's like this weird looking guy, like literally looking through what looks like an empty can of Pringles. Like it feels so real. And all it is looks like you need another can. And I just think with what's been going on and we're all out there and we're wearing masks and I don't know, you guys have to go check out this awesome Pringles ad and it's great. So those are a couple that I've seen that I've kind of liked and have stuck with me. You're on mute.
Are you saying that Pringles is to blame for the COVID-19 factor that's affecting many of us, alcohol and Pringles? Because I've seen that in my own home many a time. So
Right? It's so good.
Oy, oy, oy. Well, thanks for that, and it gives us all positive energy and hope. Let's think about great creative, and let's carry that forward as we move forward. I mean, creative has always been a big part. Creative messaging has always been a big part of our industry. So let's promote these and promote others coming down the line. It would be great. Thanks for that, Debbie. Now, I just want to move to kind of a slightly broader view. So the question here is, how does the broader agency world view the future of media generally and out-of-home's role in that broader ecosystem? And I think for that, we thought we'd bring on a guest panelist halfway through the day. And Stuart Garvey, the CEO of GroupM, has been able to join us today. So I think he's going to pop in and talk about some of those broader ecosystem stuff and out-of-home's role.
Oh,
he's not
here
in
yet,
but
yes.
He is coming.
Actually, I can step in, Bill, if because I have another couple of examples of creative that I thought we could show, if that works for you.
That's fine, and then we can get Stuart to jump in after. That's great. And
okay.
I know, Debbie, you're going to jump in as well. I'll grab you just after.
All right. So, Adriana, if you could show the Porsche ad, please. Now, to me, this is sort of my future. Actually, so I hope. This comes from our friends at Outfront, and I think it's brilliant. It's Porsche's very first entry into the electric car market. And it's, to Debbie's point, one of the great things that out-of-home does is simplicity, but this is elegant and simple. So if you look at the back of the car, what you can see is the tail lights. Now, the tail lights actually light up at night. On this car, so that it's a wonderful way of really playing with the medium. And again, I think that's something that out-of-home does well. We're playful. My next piece of creative, Adriana, with the diamond. So I think there was a bit of a theme in my speech before about weddings and love and marriage and all of that sort of thing. This is kind of fun. This was an ad that ran on our on Vendo's Paris sign. We call it Love in Paris because a couple was driving by the sign. They actually saw the ring. They went right to the jeweler. They bought a ring, and the gentleman proposed to his bride-to-be. And they called the sign owner right afterwards to tell them what prompted that engagement. And I just think that's sort of lovely. We talk a lot about sort of the more personal aspects of out-of-home. We talk about the grandeur of out-of-home, but the fact that this could actually have such a profound effect on a personal relationship is astounding, and it gives me happiness and hope. So Bill, there we are. Thank you for that.
Sorry, somehow my screen just went completely blank. Ouch. Again, Stuart hasn't joined us yet, so I'm going to ask Debbie to jump in and talk a little bit about that broader ecosystem as well and give us some thoughts. Thanks, Debbie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty biased. I love out-of-home, and I've been in out-of-home for the better part of 10 years. But out-of-home, we've seen the critical success that out-of-home has had on e-com sales, on store sales. We know that it drives traffic. We know that it drives search. We've proven it with our attribution models, with our lift studies, and we've shown marketers that it should be part of storytelling. It should be part of a path to purchase story for marketers. And it does surprise me that it's still only worth 4% of ad spend. So I do believe that when we get into this world where cookies are moving away, which is a few years away, and these online sites or the way in which we target audiences is going to be pretty tricky in a digital environment. I do hope that out-of-home comes in and plays more of a prominent role in telling that story, in proving out attribution, in proving out results. We can totally review what people are doing in store, what people are doing online, and attribute that back to an out-of-home exposure. And so I hope that we move from 4% to 10% of ad spend in the next few years.
You know, I love that, some of that information, Debbie, appreciate it. And honestly, you're going to be at the front lines of helping drive this.
Yes, I will.
We need you. We need
Yes.
you to
Yes.
do all this stuff. It's fantastic. Listen, we'll come back to Stuart in just a minute. And let me just flip to another question. I wouldn't mind touching on this quickly. With many advertisers opting for digital out of home based on the flexibility of messaging and the shorter lead times, how does the panel think about static out of home and how it will be in the post-COVID recovery? Will it become less or more valuable, and in what areas? So I'd love to get some thoughts on that. And maybe I'm going to come back to you again, Debbie, to kind of turn to one of the buyers on the panel.
Yeah, I think there's always value for static media. I kind of think about out of home in general, but definitely static media as real estate, as buying a house. You know, doesn't matter where your house is sitting. You might have like a really ugly parking lot in your backyard, or you're not in the best area, or you're at the end of a street and there's like, you know, a school across the street or something that makes your house not as valuable. But I always think there's a buyer for every house. And I think it really depends on how badly someone wants that, you know, that location or that out of home board or that static piece. And it depends how much value they place on it. So I think, you know, value really varies from client to client. Not everybody is going to value a static board the same as another. And, you know, from a vendor perspective, because I've sat on the vendor side, sure, like economics will certainly shift from, you know, how much they put, you know, how much value they place on static versus digital. I think they'll figure out how to make up, you know, the value if things change or if people will pay less for certain assets that they have. But I absolutely believe that clients still want 100% share of voice. They still value location very much, and especially specific location. And when there's an ask for specific location, then that piece of content or that structure is valuable.
I know that makes us very happy here. I mean, some of the creative examples that you and Amanda showed, some of that was static.
Yeah.
I think the Pringles was a static campaign.
Yeah.
And obviously the Porsche one was as well. And I know that's near and dear to my personal heart with all the stuff we have on the Gardener. So thank you. Just keep on promoting that. I love it. Does anyone else have any thoughts on static? Amanda, any thoughts from your front?
I think there are always advertisers, certainly on the local front, that appreciate the permanence of a static board. They like the fact that every time they drive by it, they can see it's a very tangible effect of being able to see their advertising. So I definitely think that static will always have a place. I don't think it's dying anytime soon, and I applaud it. Certainly, Bill, to your point, we have a number of static opportunities in our cadre as well. So yes, we cannot possibly talk about the death of static anytime soon. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. It's good to hear that positive, you know, industry support. And specifically, Debbie, I will be coming to you with a whole bunch of static pictures very soon. Tight. So I'm going to actually move to another guest. We seem to have, hopefully, the other guests available. And if not, we'll skip the question, but I'll try it anyway. So we've been talking a lot about disruption. We kicked it off talking about disruption today. And I guess the question is, what is the out-of-home industry doing to ensure out-of-home is a disruptor and not a disrupted or a disruptee? And I think, Amanda, you touched on this earlier. One of the most important institutions in our industry to get this right is COME. And so we're going to turn to the new president of COME, Amanda Dornberg, who's got a great background in out-of-home. She's worked in several companies. Many of you know her, and now she's on board at COME. So Amanda, over to you. What is COME going to do? And we do see your face, so you're there somewhere. By the way, your hair looked very similar to what mine looked like in the 80s.
Hi, friends. I'm so sorry. I got kicked out when you promoted me to panelist. Thank you for letting me crash your party, and I'm very, very happy to be here. I think, you know, as it pertains to what the industry is doing to remain a disruptor, I love this question. I'm so happy to be here answering this question because I've kind of made a point to be that bold, outspoken, crazy person and out of home. I don't look normal by any means to have, the title that I have. But I think COVID has really exacerbated the need for digital transformation, the need for data, the need for community, the need for connection. And I do feel very strongly that pre-COVID, I don't think we were in the same position that we are today in the state of digital transformation, acceptance of data, analytics, new technology, emerging technology, evolving our methodologies, our thought processes, understanding data science, understanding attribution. I'm a huge data nerd. I spent 2 years in blockchain and machine learning just because I found it interesting and I wanted to learn about it. And taking these thought processes and methodologies and really bringing them to life, to fruition as a collective is something that really is the future and is what needs to happen to continue disruption. We can't do this individually as individual operators, individual agency groups, buyers, planners, etc. It has to be a collective. And I'm very passionate about that component, and obviously taking the helm at COMB hopefully gives me the opportunity to bring us all together closer and to really leverage some new data, some new opportunities. Programmatic is amazing, but we just came off a question about static. And I feel that we need to apply some of the same methodologies and tactics that we're doing on the digital side to the static side. The static buyers are very different than the programmatic digital out of home buyers. Most of the programmatic digital out of home are going to be national brands and large organizations. Whereas a lot of the static, it's changed, it's evolved a lot. I agree, absolutely. Buyers love 100% share of voice. The big super boards and whatnot will still remain very much a national component. I think, from a poster standpoint or from even a place-based standpoint and interior static, et cetera, it's going to become more community-based. And it's really going to be a lot more local regional buyers that are focused on those assets. So to remain a disruptor, we need to have the mindset that we're in a different era and we're in a different generation of buyers, planners. We're in a new generation of technology. There's new tech and emerging tech that's out there that we need to be aware of and understand how to apply that to our historical methodologies and create new methodologies to really evolve the industry and increase market share. At the end of the day, Debbie, I think it was you who mentioned we're still a small piece of the pie, and I don't get it because I'm biased too. I love out of home. I've been in it for ever. And, I just want to increase that. And if this new position and this new opportunity allows me to aid both our agency partners and our buyers and operators to increase market share, but also disrupt from a technology standpoint, then let's have it.
Well, listen, that gives me hope. We were talking, as you know, last week, Amanda, but when I started in the industry, not that long ago, 10, 15 years ago, but I wasn't out of home. I'm like the methodology and how the audiences were derived at was a certain way. And then I arrived many years later in the industry and discovered that it's exactly the same methodology. So I'm kind of glad to hear that.
Sorry for my swearing, but it's crazy.
What's that?
I said it's fucking crazy. Sorry for my swearing, but it's actually crazy. We need to take and be open to new opportunities and new disruptions. And I think I'm very excited to work with everyone, work with all of our operators, our buyers, our agency partners to really come together and just create the new path. There's so many opportunities. There's so much data available. There's so many applications for the data. And it's really just understanding what do our consumers want? How can they take this massive, heap of analytics and make it into something that's very digestible, that's easy to understand, and that, somebody who's not a technical nerd like me and doesn't want to dive into 200 lines of code can actually relate to,
Well, I love it. I love it. Love what you're talking about. Glad you're joined us. I find the swearing a little suspect, but otherwise we're glad that you're here. It's all good.
Yes, I personally am shocked. And
terrible. Yeah.
And you're true to your word. You have the hoodie on, so I love it.
Yeah, I love my hoodies. I love my hoodies.
Good stuff. Thanks, Amanda. And
Thanks, guys.
we just have another guest pop in. We talked about Stuart earlier. Stuart, it's over to you to answer the question posed earlier, which I think you heard, which is, give us your view of the broader ecosystem and out-of-home's role in it as we move forward coming out of COVID.
Yeah, allow me just to compose my thoughts a little bit. I've just been having a few phone calls trying to work with technology. I've been on the call, just so everyone knows, since 3:25 like a good boy. And I've been watching and trying to get on. Listen, the out-of-home industry is a near and dear one to my heart. And I think that what we're going to see when we come out of COVID is a return to some sort of normality. And I think some of the panelists said, we've seen a digital transformation in the way that we consume things, the way that we interact, the way that we work. But we're all human beings, and we're going to be outside again, and we're going to move around. And I think some of the technological advancement in out of home is great. We're doing an awful lot of it at Group M with Kevin. And it's what clients are wanting now is that sort of instant flexibility of digital. But moving forward, we're going to still have the same communication challenges as we had before, which is, some people will want long-term holdings on out-of-home boards for visibility. Some people want a message popping up more regularly in more detailed environments in specific locations. I think the challenge for the out-of-home industry, I'll answer two questions at once if you want. The static boards has been an issue for me for a while. Static boards are valuable if they're in the right place, but they are not very flexible, and often they are poor quality and are just legacy. So I think the out-of-home industry has an issue in that, legacy boards that can't get changed to digital because they will not get put up and they will get removed if you change them. I think the whole out-of-home industry has to think about that, because it's starting to pull down the overall value of out-of-home when you have to buy a crappy board in paper and paste behind a tree just in order to get other quality inventory. So, the out-of-home industry is very resilient. It's going to be enduring. It's the oldest form of advertising. And for me, it's one of the most impactful. We saw some great examples. Digital and data is only adding to that. And so it's going to be a huge part of how we advertise moving forward. And anyone that wants to catch people on the move in specific locations, however you define out of home, is going to have to put up out of home. So I think it has a bright future as we start to see the disruption as well of how we consume other brand media through streaming and how we consume stuff at home. Now, I also believe that the consolidation of television and cable is going to endure too. But out of home is in that position where it's enduring and will be successful.
Well, I've heard you, Stuart, talk before about both out of home, but also about television and your belief in both platforms. So it's glad to hear you say that here once again and give people a kind of a positive energy. If you were looking forward, let's say, in the near future, do you think out of home will bounce all the way back to where it was? Will it bounce beyond where it was in terms of things like total ad pie market share? Like, what do you think?
I see no reason why it wouldn't. I mean, I think we see that out-of-home industry bouncing back whenever the whatever the new normal is, and as we get back to a newer normal, as soon as people start moving around more, the out-of-home industry will bounce back. I think we're in a position now, probably in the out-of-home industry, where we could take this opportunity to clean it up. All of you guys who are sitting there selling out-of-home, your yields will go up, and there will be zero effect on effect if we take out all the shitty static boards. But I think it will bounce back. We wonder about where television and streaming bounces back, but that seems to be robust too. But out of home will definitely bounce back.
Well, you heard it here. It's great news. Now, Fab, thinking it from the perspective of a media seller and a media vendor, in terms of that bounce back factor, what do you think the future holds, near term, midterm? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, it's only been 8 months of trying to figure out when I'm on or not on mute. Globally, we're lucky. The cinema industry, we have an industry that has bounced back in the Far East. We're seeing big numbers. People are returning. The media spend, we haven't got much details on that, but people want to be entertained, people want to share experiences, so they're going to come back. On the mall side, we're also seeing the return of traffic. We're looking towards a bright future. I think the biggest thing that we can add, though, is being smarter about how we connect with those people once they do return. Being able to connect with them in someone measured attribution. We need to be smarter about what we put in front of people. Crap doesn't sell stuff. Like, they want to connect with good stuff that means something to them. And I think for us, we look at data and insights are critical in the planning, measurement, and retargeting. And we've doubled down in a big way on data and insights. A lot of people have a lot of data points. And I think what's most important, and we need to keep focusing on, is how do we reach the right audience, help you reach with the right content at the right time so that it's relevant. And most importantly, if you're innovative and you continue to work to understand how you can connect with people, you give yourself a fighting chance as the people return and you connect with them and you make good connections.
Some great thought starters, Fab. Maybe stick with you for a second. This is a question, I'm just going outside now a bit from our standard list. A couple of people written in questions, but one question from our friends, Kevin and Rena at Kinetic. It's from Kevin and Rena, so I guess they craft all questions and they do all things together. I don't know. They can't, they're probably watching, but they can't defend themselves right now. So anyways, one of the questions is, what have you seen, if any areas, what areas of growth have you seen to your business during COVID? Have you seen, actually, even though everything in general is down, are you seeing certain areas of growth and positivity?
Well, on the media side, the cinema business has been a bit of a whack-a-mole, where we do contracts and then the government insists that we close, even though I'd like to go on record as to say there has been one case, not only in Canada, but one case globally that has been reported in cinema. But the game of whack-a-mole we're playing makes our teams agile in terms of moving content around. And the malls have benefited as a result. Our mall network is doing quite well. We will continue to, on our other side of our digital media business, the agility that QSR has been looking for in terms of strong, smart messaging in this time of COVID, as they reduced their menus and started to focus on digital drive-thrus, has been beneficial for us. We've seen a pickup in grocery where people are recognizing we need to be smart and agile about how we put messaging in front of people as the COVID pandemic ebbs and flows, and whether you go from a code red to a code orange. So there have been bright spots for sure. We, like everyone else, are just looking forward to whatever this new normal is. So all the cool stuff we developed during COVID can be road tested in a big way because we're excited about what the future holds for out-of-home media. So we want to just get at it and get people back into those spaces where they can interact with really cool content.
Thanks, Fab. That's great. And Scott, I'm just thinking from your perspective, you come from obviously a slightly different angle with programmatic, but where have you seen as being the positive developments from your perspective?
Yeah, I think one of the growth areas is definitely the reception to the education piece. A lot of our partners are starting to be more engaging with us to understand about how they can start to utilize some of these flexible tools like data, like measurement, understanding what that means in terms of how they have conversations with their clients. How can they describe to their clients the effective strategies that they're going to really bring to the market during this challenging time? And so I think that's a really positive area, especially from a programmatic standpoint and coming into a very traditional, I guess, channel. It's something that we always want to talk about and engage with our clients on. So definitely that. And then the continual adoption of wanting to use those strategies. How do we be more effective at delivering data-driven out-of-home strategies for, achieving these marketing campaigns and proving that they're actually working.
Totally agree with you, Scott. Thanks a lot. Listen, I've got another question from the audience, from Nikki Stone over at Apex and PMX. And maybe I'm going to throw this towards you, Amanda D. But what do you believe is the gold standard for delivery of campaign performance through tangible measurement today that's not programmatic? When traffic patterns are changing quite a bit, obviously daily right now, but even as we move forward. So what are you thinking in terms of providing that data, especially in the short term?
I think there's a huge opportunity for, again, the industry to come together in a collaborative approach to create more, I don't want to use the term real time, but appropriately timed information and reporting. The opportunity to look at data. I mean, the data is out there. We've got various road segments, whether it's coming from COMB, whether it's coming from each individual operator. All of us have our own data. It's how can we actually put that out there and leverage that to our advantage for both, the gold standard of, whether it's static or digital, whether it's integration of programmatic, whether it's continuing the disruption with new out-of-home formats like audio out-of-home. Vistar just did a big deal with a huge audio out-of-home organization that's in the grocery and convenience network. And, thinking about the new applications of out-of-home, Stuart, it was, I think you mentioned, the use of new applications and the natural cannibalization that's going to happen with static assets to evolve and, create new opportunities will affect the quote unquote gold standard of data attribution analytics. And we as a holistic industry need to come together and say, what is that standard moving forward? Currently right now, COMB doesn't standardize, let's say, the programmatic impressions. We provide impressions, and then there's multipliers added to that. There's dwell times added to that. Moving forward, we will have the opportunity to be providing information such as dwell time, spot length, and panel specific information and data sets. So there's a lot of evolution. There's a lot of things happening in the background. And I think that, coming together as a whole industry that includes programmatic, that includes audio out of home, that includes these new formats, rechargeable stations within out of home, that's going to become the new gold standard, in my opinion.
I think there's a definition as well. One thing that's always got me about the word programmatic is it covers an awful lot of stuff and is often poorly defined. Each static out of home board is a data point, for sure, irrelevant of delivery method, whether you're delivering that in real time through video onto a board that has a video capability, or you're delivering it in a 4-week segment by someone pasting the thing up. That is a data point. So out of home, by the fact it is exactly where the location is by definition quite programmatic. You then can add data on top of that, and our delivery mechanisms allow more flexibility of how quickly we can get stuff up onto those boards. But if you use those data points and you start to use the data we have, I mean, we find it relatively easy to see attribution models now, given Kevin's system. But that sort of stuff is becoming easier and easier when you are starting to use those data points better.
And Stuart, I 100% agree. And that was my point, on the prior question that we had previously, was we need to be applying the same type of thought process to static that we are to digital as it pertains to data analytics, attribution methodologies. Like there has to be a holistic, synergy between out of home in each of the various formats that is data driven. It is, future forward thinking. It's not, what have we done historically? It's what do we need in the future to continue to grow this this industry and our revenues.
I'm going to just jump in here. Thanks, guys. Listen, we're going to have to tie it up. It's almost 4 o'clock. Maybe a pithy one-liner from each of our panelists today. Amanda N., any last thought?
All right. Well, I'm going to paraphrase the eternal words of Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction and say, we will not be ignored. Whether we're doing it individually via our strongest brethren or through COMB, it's imperative on us as a collective to shout about the power of our medium and to make sure that it's remembered. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. Scott?
Yeah, I definitely want to echo Amanda's point there, but I also just want to say this is a challenging time for everybody, and I think it's really important that we all help one another out, ask how people are doing, do your friendly check-ins, and really kind of just come with a human attitude towards everything, because we are working through a really difficult time, and being kind to one another does really help lift everyone's spirits, as well as in a collaborative effort from business, life, in general, every day.
Great thoughts, Scott. Thank you. Amanda D.
I think my final parting words would be the evolution of out of home is a great transformative phase that we are in currently. And let's continue to look forward to the future and how we enhance that.
Love the positivity. Excellent. Fab.
Sorry. You know, I've been telling our staff this for a while. Take this time to reflect on the value that we provide our partners and how we can, you know, better leverage the data that we have access to and help them reach their target audience with the right message. And most importantly, take care of our people, take care of each other. We will get through this together. It's going to take some time, but a bit of patience and caring will get there.
Thanks, Fab. Debbie?
Yeah, I always think about acceptance, really take it all in, accept what's happening, you know, adjust, and stay healthy and stay positive. I think both those two things are really going to help us get through the year and start fresh for 2021.
Brilliant. Thanks, Debbie. And Stuart?
Well, firstly, have a dry run on technology whenever you go on the call. But I would just echo Scott and Fab's sentiment there. You know, I'm hoping that we come through this being nicer and kinder to each other. And I'm seeing it a lot, and people are taking care of each other a bit better. I hope we don't forget to do this when we come out into our new normal, because I think it's really important. As an industry, we're nicer to each other. We work in partnership. We don't call each other's stuff terrible. And, you know, we're all in this trying to make advertising work better for our clients. So, you know, that's all about taking care of ourselves and as an industry being nice to each other. So I hope we carry that forward.
It's great thoughts. Listen, just a parting word. I mean, I'm historically used to panels where there's open pitch battles between the members. It's nice to see actually a collaboration today. I'm ready to rebuild for sure. So thank you all for joining. Thanks to all the panelists. Thanks to everyone else on the line. I'm going to pass it back to Leith and Daniel.
Well, that was amazing. Thank you. I have no other words. Dan?
Dan's already joining Debbie on for the cocktails, I think.
You.
I said thanks for coming. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye
Thank
now.
you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Be safe.